Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the show, Spider Does Things. That's me, your good buddy Spider. I'm doing things. I'm having shows, courtesy of ltatm.net. Let's talk about the madness. If you haven't gone to the website yet, there's a lot of good stuff there. The YouTube channel link's there, so you can watch the latest video, my latest gameplay videos and reviews and everything. This podcast actually links there, so you can listen to the episodes right there on the website. There's forums. There's a special Patreon page, so you can... It's free, by the way. The Patreon is free. I know a lot of people use Patreon for crowdfunding, but mine is free for right now. And there's a lot of neat stuff there. Some lost videos and lost audio and things that you can't get other places. And did I mention it's free? It's a free VIP membership. It's mostly just to keep track of the people who put in the most effort towards following everything that I do with me and my various associates. And so if you're the super dedicated, really interested fan and you want to go the extra mile and do something really special, you can do that. The Patreon page, it's free. ltatm.net. Become a member of the LTATM community. Let's talk about the madness. So hi. Very informal tonight, very informal. What are we going to talk about? I mean, first off, I got to say that the weather has been great. The weather's been fantastic. And you're going to hear me talk about the weather like this 2 weeks in a row because in a weird case of time travel, I've already recorded episode 15, even though this is episode 14. Why did I do that, you may ask? It's because next week, which is, I've already done it earlier today, but still, you're going to hear it next week. Next week's episode is an interview with the writer of Jack and V, a new sci-fi novel that, as of this recording and that recording, it's out on pre-order for Amazon Kindle. And it's super interesting stuff. I'm going to tell you the blurb. I'm going to tell you the little blurb, like if you were turning around and you were reading the back cover of the book. If you went to the bookstore and you picked it up off the shelf, this is what it would say. Okay, so let me take a look here. I've got it in my emails, and I'm going to read it out to you. And you can tell me if you well, I don't know, maybe you can tell me, maybe you can't, I don't know. Let me find the blurb. Okay. Jack and V. In a future of total automation, there's no war, no hunger, no scarcity. Only one question remains. When machines provide everything, what are humans even for? V is a war-scarred pilot running from her past. Jack is a disillusioned tech restarting his life. When their paths collide, pardon my stumbling, it sparks a chain of betrayals, awakenings, and impossible choices. Jack and V is a fast, gritty, emotionally charged novella about what happens when the future doesn't need you, but you refuse to disappear. For fans of Blade Runner, Altered Carbon, and Ghost in the Shell. And I'm 2 chapters in. I'm reading it slower than I normally would, because I didn't want to put any spoilers in the interview. I interviewed the author, or one member of the author. It's a team effort, it's a writing team, okay? I've interviewed one of the people on the writing team, and you're going to hear that next week. And I'm excited about that. It was a good interview. I liked it. We had a lot to talk about. A lot of good, deep stuff went into that, and I'm super interested for all of you folks to hear that. So that's then. But because I recorded that earlier today, I did my usual thing, and I talked about the weather. And since the weather is beautiful now, it's going to be beautiful then. In that weird time travel kind of, thing that happens when you record episodes like that. And that's fine. Hopefully it's still accurate next week. Hopefully the weather is still good next week, and I won't be caught in my time travel, even though I've just admitted to all of you. We'll keep that our secret. We'll edit it out in post. But yeah, it's been great today. Not yesterday. It's recording this right now. It's the 23rd. Actually, yeah, it's the 23rd. I haven't slept yet, so it's not the next day for me. It's still kind of the 22nd for me. But on the 20th, a few days ago, it was Easter. Okay? And I didn't do anything for Easter, of course, because I don't. I'm not a holiday person. I've made that, pretty clear, and it's not because I have any sort of, anger or negative feelings towards holidays. I just don't do holidays because I'm not religious, particularly. I'm not into the materialist buy stuff, Easter basket, Christmas presents kind of thing, So I stayed home to get some work done while the rest of the family went to visit other family, which is fine. We don't mind. They do their thing, I do my thing. It gives me time to hang out here and to get things accomplished, which I did do a lot. I did a lot of various work for the website and for the video channel and all that good stuff. And I grilled outside for the first time this season because it was such nice weather. It has to be nice weather here with no rain for me to get the grill out of the shed, because I don't want it to get wet and rust. And there's a cat on my shoulder, like forcing its way towards this microphone. Please don't. Come on, get over there. What are you doing? But I grilled some burgers. I had a good time outside, and then I came inside and I rehearsed, because as of this recording, since it's still April, in May, on May 10th, I have a show, not a talking show. I have a musical performance at the Vortex in Akron, Ohio, May 10th, 2025. I'm on the bill. I'm organizing the entire show. I've got all the bands involved. I got all the tickets set up. I'm putting on a goth night, because I figure a themed show would be fun and get some attention. But I will be on stage performing Spider in the Hall music live. So if you haven't seen it and you're going to be in the area and you would like to see me do these things, I'm going to be dressed up. Not in anything too crazy, but it'll be something familiar to people who've been following along with my music endeavors for a while. And we're going to have a good time. So May 10th, 2025, Goth Night at the Vortex. Doors open at 6. Each of the bands, including myself, has tickets for $10. You can get tickets from us. Buying tickets from any of the particular bands helps that particular band get paid. They get paid from their ticket sales. And so feel free to check all the bands out on the bill. You can look on Facebook. The flyer is there. Look for the Vortex at Akron, Ohio, and find Goth Night May 10th. And it's $15 at the door if you do not have a ticket. So you're still going to be able to get in, but you're going to have to pay $5 more. To hear these dulcet tones lull you into whatever they're going to lull you into. Let's talk about some other things. I recently, and I'm going to mention it again on, I believe I mentioned it in the recording for next week's show. On YouTube, I have hit 1,000 videos, which is a pretty big personal milestone for me. Like, I didn't expect to still be making videos that far into things. I didn't think I'd get to that level. I thought maybe I'd get bored with it, or I'd give up or whatever. But the response I've gotten from all you folks out there, all the listeners, has just been, it's been fantastic. And so I made a thank you video. I made a special thank you video for all of you, detailing my time in radio podcast entertainment, starting from all the way back when I was on the early episodes of the ill-fated Let's Talk About the Music, which is still kind of a thing these days, but it's not, I'm not there anymore. And she hasn't changed. She's still a grifter. She's still, just trying to get money out of people, so I wouldn't support that, to be honest, if I were you, but you do whichever you want to do. But that's how I got started in the business, and then I went on to make the Dirty Rotten Weekend, which had a mix of different underground music, and that was fun for a little while. And then I got into doing the Spirits Club, which was initially like the backbone of my YouTube channel. And then I started doing game streams, and game streams have been really great. And then this show has really picked up. Like I'm finally about to make a profit on the podcast, which is a pretty big deal because that means I can pay the expenses without having to pay normal out of pocket to cover the things, because the stuff isn't cheap, and this isn't going to turn into a pledge drive. This isn't going to turn into a, so you should definitely buy a t-shirt just to keep me going, whatever. I'm not going into that, because that's not what I mean. I'm grateful for everybody who's passively gotten me to this point, because you didn't have to open up your wallet to do this. All you had to do was listen and watch, and you've done that. And that's generated the ad revenue that's got me to where I am. And that ad revenue has finally gotten to the point where it can start paying bills. And I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate everything that you folks do. And so thank you. 1,000 videos on YouTube and more. I'll already probably have 2 or 3 more added to that by the time you hear this, which is fantastic. So let's just keep growing. We're building an empire, is what we're doing. We are building an empire together. You and me against the world. We're doing what we do. Let's pivot a little bit. If you've paid attention to my other podcast endeavors, then you may or may not already be a subscriber to This Uncanny Earth, which you can watch on YouTube or on Twitch if you follow Uncanny Alchemist. That's Rob, he's the host. And on this Uncanny Earth, we've changed things up a little bit. We have changed things up. We're not doing... For the longest time, it was Rob was the host, I was the co-host, and that's how it went. And then we started to get kind of burnt down on things. A lot of things in various personal lives started getting in the way. And the show started getting kind of stale, I guess. We brought in Steven, the intern. He's the notorious Deadpool head from my Twitch stream chats, if you've been watching those. And he kind of helped give things a little bit of a boost and give an extra opinion on things. But we took a bit of a break. We took a month off. We took the month of March off to go back to basics, to kind of re-examine where we were going with the show. And so now every week you're going to get a different person who's going to present the topic and be the moderator. One week it'll be Rob, one week it'll be Steven, 1 week it'll be me, and then it resets. And so it's gonna feel new and fresh and different. It's got a new intro, a new outro. Everything's new. Everything's new. So definitely tune in if you haven't lately. It's This Uncanny Earth on YouTube, and it's worth the watch. I'm saying this because one of the things we talked about recently was in Egypt. Everybody loves Egyptian archaeology. Everybody loves getting into, ooh, what kind of new stuff? They found a new mummy. They found a new tomb. They found new ruins. What's going on in Egypt? It's fantastic. And recently, over the last month or so, they did this radar scanning from super high altitude. It was called SAR. It was synthetic aperture radar. And you can look that up. I'm not going to go into the specifics about it because it's a little dense on the science. But they used it to scan the area of the Giza Plateau, which is where the big 3 pyramids that you famously know of in Egypt. When you think of Egypt and you think of pyramids, you think of those big 3 pyramids right there in Cairo, outside of Cairo. Okay? And they did this scan, and they said, and there's images, radar images of it, and then they have their own 3D predictive models of what they think it looks like, but they said there's these big structures with spirals and columns and all kinds of other things underneath the plateau, leading 2,000 meters, 2 kilometers down below the sand into the rock. And it's fascinating, but it's also kind of, I don't know how much I believe it. On the one hand, you've got the Egyptian authorities saying, oh no, it's fake news, there's nothing under there, because they don't want anything that's going to come in and change the outlook of their cultural heritage. They're very protective of their history in Egypt. They're very protective of it. And they don't want anybody to come in with an idea that's going to challenge that, because it might challenge how they feel about their history, and they don't want that, right? They're proud of it. But it's also potentially that these things could challenge the way that development happened in that part of the world, because we still have mysteries about the pyramids. There's these pyramids, and then there's other pyramids that are made that aren't as good out in other parts of the desert, and the age and the carbon dating, and there's a lot of words I'm throwing at you that you have to look up because I can't go into all of them in this short span of time that we have for the podcast. But according to other people who know the technology, they said the technology is only good for like 3 meters underground, because it's not meant to be used underground. It's meant to be used where there's a light source. It's a radar source. It's not, So the original team said, oh yeah, we got 2,000 meters down, 2 kilometers, where other people have said in scientific textbooks and papers that it's only good for up to 3 meters at most. And they have results that seem to prove that. So that's an interesting thing. We talked about it on This Uncanny Earth, and I wanted to know what people's thoughts were about it. I've seen a lot of artists' impressions of the 3D models, and some of them are kind of out there. Some of them are kind of like, okay, because this looks like sci-fi power plants and magical arc welder kind of stuff. I don't know. The radar image doesn't look like much to me. But to be fair, I am not an expert on reading radar images. I don't I don't have a degree in any of that kind of stuff, and I've not made a career out of doing that, either amateur or professionally. Okay, it's not a field of study that I've been really, really well versed in, so I can't say for sure. It doesn't look like it for me, but I don't know. The 3D models are compelling. I'll say that. They're compelling, but I'm not sure they're convincing. And of course, the Egyptian authorities won't allow people to dig to follow up on that stuff because, of course, they don't want to. They don't want anything to potentially damage the plateau, damage the pyramids, damage the whatever other artifacts are there. For one, to preserve that stuff. Okay, it makes sense from one perspective. You don't want to accidentally cause damage to an ancient structure that you can't replicate, that you can't fix, you can't repair. Okay? But also because they don't want to damage their tourism business, because people flock there all the time, pay big money to go to Egypt to look at the pyramids. Right? To see the mummies, to see the artifacts, And they don't want to damage that because it's a big source of income to the country. And I can understand it. I totally understand it, It makes sense. It just makes it difficult to either substantiate or disavow any claims like this. You know what I mean? If you want to tell people, no, that's not true, there's nothing under there, show some kind of evidence otherwise. And I understand why they don't want to and why they can't, because they are, again, preserving various things. But on the other hand, if you want to prove that the stuff that's there, you have to be able to dig there. You have to be able to go down and take a look, and you can't, because of the potential for damage or the potential for the tourism being damaged. So it's just a no-win situation. It's a no-win scenario. Okay. I don't know. But there's some exciting stuff on the other side of the globe in South America. There was I don't remember the name of the city. I should. It was a Mayan city that they've been studying for a little while, right, in South America. And they found evidence, because they've already found evidence in its past that there was a political change, that the politics in the region shifted. The whole power structure changed. And it wasn't clear how dramatically that changed, but they've recently found evidence that various implements, like ancient Mayan things that they used to use for different rituals, were all gathered together in a heap and burned. As in, hey, we're burning the old ways, these ways are corrupt, we're moving on. And that coincided with the time frame of the shift in political structure, and it's super interesting because there's a lot we don't know about the way that the civilizations in South America, how they rose and how they collapsed. There's a couple of them, like the Aztecs had problems with the Spanish invading in the search for gold, right? And the Incas, I believe, had issues with that too. But the Mayans were a different story. The Mayans had a lot of political upheaval long before folks from Europe came through looking for gold and looking for the fountain of youth and all that other kind of nonsense that they didn't find. So it's been a mystery for a while, and I've read fiction books, I've read fact books, textbooks, I don't know. I don't know what the term is. Fiction and nonfiction, different things about the Mayans. Some good stories and some good facts and some good conjecture about what happened. But at some point in the past, there was a political shift, and things changed dramatically, and that whole regions became destabilized and fell into like a sort of civil war. And some recovered, and some just abandoned entire cities. And that's why we have certain ruins in South America, certain Mayan temples that have just disappeared and been claimed by the jungle. Because whatever happened, they said we couldn't live here anymore. There's questions of perhaps was it droughts, was it famine, was it various things like that, but it all had something to do with the political climate, as we would call it today. And I find that kind of fascinating, because we deal with that kind of stuff right now, don't we? We deal with different political stuff, and some of our political stuff, it's not nearly as important as people make it out to be. Like, we've had protests here in Ohio against things that the current administration is doing, and I've said it before, I don't think it makes a difference, because it's not on their doorstep, so they don't care. What are the people? What is the state government of Ohio going to do against the federal government if the people here are mad? I don't think they're going to do too much, whether it's regardless of which party currently is in command in Ohio. The other thing about Ohio right now is that our state government is pretty trash. Our state government in Ohio is 100% guilty of a lot of stuff. Look up the First Energy HB 6 scandal, House Bill 6. Look that up. That's the big thing that's going on right now here in Ohio. And there's a documentary about it coming out, I think, on HBO Max, on the streaming service on Max. But not every single person in the state government who is involved with that has been outed yet. There are very prominent figures in the state government who are super, super guilty. Like, I can't go into specifics because I don't have information pulled up, and I don't want people to come in and be like, well, yeah, well, cite your source and do this and do that, because I don't have that information right here available. I'm not a person who sits around and collates this kind of data. I follow it, and I keep snippets of it for my personal, to follow along with things. But I don't do... This isn't an InfoWars, Alex Jones style show or outlet. I don't do that kind of stuff, so I don't have a need to collect that kind of stuff for posterity, because what good is it going to do me? I look it up for my own interest to find out how things are going, but I don't... That's not what the show is about, and that's not what I'm trying to present. But it's easily discoverable. If you follow a lot of the stuff, you can probably tell that there's certain actors involved in the... Not actors as in, movie actors and stage actors, but, individuals, political individuals are involved that haven't been named in the indictments, unfortunately, despite how clearly, obviously guilty they are to anybody who's been here at ground zero for the thing. Right? And it's unfortunate that those people are probably going to get away with it, and they're going to get off. And that makes me a little grouchy. But I didn't use First Energy, so I don't have a personal stake in it. So I can't legitimately get too upset about how it affects me. I could get upset about how it affected the state and the taxes and that kind of thing, but it's after the fact. It's already been done. What good is it going to do? I can't really get mad about it now because it's not going to change anything. So, But I'm going to be grouchy about it anyway because it makes me grouchy. Moving on to the main event. That's what I'm going to say. The main event. Of course, this, as of this recording, this past weekend was WrestleMania, the WWE's penultimate event. If you're a pro wrestling fan. If you're not, then you'll probably be tuning out by now, and you're going to be like, alright, here he goes, talking about the wrestling again. But if you are a fan, you might have some thoughts about it. It was WrestleMania 41. I have not seen every single WrestleMania. I have not always been a fan. I've come and gone throughout the history of pro wrestling from when I knew it as a kid. I knew it as a kid in the 90s, and it was okay, and I didn't get to see much of it because I only had primetime TV. I had, it was going to cable around the time that I started seeing various episodes. I would see reruns on local channels via my rabbit ears up in my TV up in my room when I was a kid. And but there was a long period where I didn't watch, didn't care. I thought everybody was terrible. And I've recently, over the last couple of years, been really getting back into it. It's been much improved of a product. Now, you have to understand, the thing about pro wrestling, and I know there might be people who argue about it, but the thing about it, it is scripted content, and it is choreographed to a point. I'm not going to say that it's fake, because these guys do athletic things that I am not capable of. Okay? They do some pretty amazing stuff that you and me can't do. Okay? It takes some level of athleticism to do some of the things that they do. You can't say that that's fake. But it is scripted. They do know who's going to win ahead of time. They do have a story that they put into place. You know, that's how it is, and that's fine. And they've started to lean into that now in the modern day with WWE. They've admit that, yes, it's all an illusion. It's all suspending your disbelief. But come along for the ride anyway. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. They've made a lot of changes in the company that are for the better, and I've been enjoying it the last couple of years. So WrestleMania 41, it's 2 nights, because there's a lot that goes on. It's a huge event. I'm going to do a little review of the 2 nights. On the first night, on Saturday, the first match was Jey Uso versus Gunther. Now, Jey Uso is from the Samoan families. He's related to Roman Reigns. His brother is Jimmy. They used to have a great tag team called the Usos, and then they split up because that storyline stuff, each doing their own thing. They were part of a series of storylines involving the Bloodline. Okay? I'm not going to go deep into this enough for people to... I'm not going to nickel and dime this whole thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, but you want to, look up some of these terms that I'm using. The Bloodline. Make sure you say WWE. WWE Bloodline, right? And various other names. So you can follow along. But Jey has been on his own. He's been trying to make a name for himself. And he's super popular with the crowds. He has, his catchphrase is yeet, which I hated. Not because he was using it, but when I first heard the term, I hated the word yeet. I still kind of do. I'm not a big fan of it. basically, yeet is something that people started saying when they threw something really far. They would go yeet and throw something. I yeeted it. This is how they would say, and I don't like stuff like that. I hate it. I understand the relationship between new slang and younger generations, and I understand also that it's just a fact of me getting old and hating things that younger people do, because that's just how it goes. When I was younger, people hated stuff that I had to say, and now that I'm older, I hate stuff that younger people say. It's funny to me. It's how things go, and it's how things are going to continue to go forever. That's just how things are. But his thing is yeet. It's he has everybody do this arm motion that's supposed to be like the yeet, and when he comes out, and he's the crowd favorite, clearly. He's the underdog. Gunther is the classic foreign menace that they use in WWE all the time. Pro wrestling has always had the foreign menace. They take guys who can pass as Russian or Germanic or Middle Eastern or something, and they're big and they're muscular and powerful and they talk with an accent. And obviously they're against the American values and things of that nature, and they always take guys like this and make them the big villains. And Gunther was the heavyweight champion for a while. And so he had the feud with Jey Uso, and it's been building up. And I'm going to... Spoilers, okay? If you haven't seen it yet, spoilers, okay? If you have not seen WrestleMania 41 yet, and you don't want to be spoiled, turn off the show. Turn off the show now. Okay? This is your last chance. Because I'm going to tell you the outcomes of everything. It's a few days later. You know, I'm going to tell you. So don't be mad if you don't take that advice and things get spoiled for you. Okay? Commencing. Jey Uso won over Gunther by using his sleeper hold submission move and making him tap out, which was a big deal. It was a big deal if you've been following the storyline. So that was good. The next match was the New Day, who used to be good, and then they flipped evil after they threw out their third member because he had been out indefinitely because he's had a neck injury that prevents him from ever wrestling again. It's a permanent injury in real life. It's not like a wrestling storyline. It's real life. But they used it as part of the storyline as an excuse to kick him out. And because of that, the crowd turned on them, so they turned evil. Because they did it in a rude, mean kind of way. Throwing out their best friend, right? So they're bad guys now. They're a tag team. They were up against the War Raiders. Now, the War Raiders used to be the Viking Raiders. Because back during the previous owner of the company's time, he liked big, theatrical, weird things. And he made them Vikings. Which seemed kind of silly in 2025, 2024. You know, it seems kind of like, why are you making people wear loincloths and things in 2024 and 2025? It's kind of, you know. But the War Raiders now, they've got kind of like a big burly kind of biker image, and they're pretty good. They're not bad. They're big guys. Big heavyweight guys. And they've had this feud with the New Days for a little while, and they were the tag champions. And the New Day won over the War Raiders via a dirty pin. They cheated, and they won. I'm not going to tell you the details. You've got to watch for yourself to find out. After that, you had a grudge match. Jade Cargill over Naomi via a pin. That means that Jade Cargill won. Naomi was a friend of Jade and Bianca Belair, who will come up later. Those two ladies, she was a friend of those two. But she was jealous about Jade being the newcomer, taking up time with her friend Bianca. So she attacked her secretly backstage, and that made her a bad guy. And this was Jade's chance to get back. So Jade won the match over bad guy Naomi via a pin. Pretty cut and dry. The next match, though, was fun. You had El Grande Americano versus Rey Fenix. Now, first off, El Grande Americano, this is a luchador a luchador match. I'm thinking of masks because they're luchadors. A luchador match. El Grande Americano is Chad Gable. Chad Gable used to be a member of the Alpha Academy, and then he fell out because he was a jerk, a tool bag, and he was pushing them around, and they didn't want to be pushed around anymore, so they kicked him out because he's a bully. But then he started trying to fight people, and he kept getting beaten by luchadors. Okay. There aren't too many luchadors in WWE, but there are a few, and he kept losing them. So he went on this quest to find out the secret. How can I beat the luchadors? And he had to become a luchador. So he puts on a mask. The gimmick is that it's not supposed to be him. The announcer's like, oh, that's Chad Gable in a mask. But he doesn't give off that he's Chad Gable, so everybody has to pretend he's not. Excuse me. And he calls himself El Grande Americano, which is like a Starbucks drink. And he's been antagonizing the various luchador people because he puts a piece of metal in his mask. So you can't see the metal, and the ref doesn't see it because he sneaks it in, and then he headbutts people. And it knocks them out because it's a heavy piece of metal, right? And that's how he's been winning. So he's got this match over Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix is one of the two big names in luchador in WWE right now. His brother is Pentagon Jr. They were in the rival promotion AEW for a while, and then some various drama happened when they left. I'll let you look up that. But Rey Fenix is an incredible athlete. Super. And he's only been in the company for like 2 weeks, and he's already at WrestleMania, which is pretty staggering as far as things go. So they have a lot of high hopes with him. But he battled El Grande Americano, Chad Gable, and Chad won via the dirty pin because he stuck the metal in his mask and cheated with the weapon. The next match was Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair for one of the women's championship belts. And there's been a lot of back and forth about leading up to this. They had, when Charlotte came back at Royal Rumble, she'd been out on injury, she came back, people initially cheered, but then she won the Royal Rumble, but people weren't going for it. They were mad. Maybe because they felt like she's related to Ric Flair, one of the legendary people in the business. They didn't feel like she deserved the title shot, because if you win WrestleMania or Royal Rumble, you get a title shot at WrestleMania. They didn't feel like she deserved it, so they started really booing her badly at the shows in between leading up to it, where she couldn't even get a word in edgewise. And so the talks between her and the champion Tiffany Stratton on the various shows in between got to be pretty heated and kind of personal. Like, they really kind of went after each other a little bit. And this match was pretty physical. Tiffany Stratton lost some veneers over her teeth. You could tell her teeth got messed up in the match. You could see where they had been covered up and now they weren't. They got beat up, the two of them. But Tiff won via a pin, so she's still the women's champion. Finally, you had the main event of Night 1 at WrestleMania, which was Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. CM Punk, of course, is a pretty divisive individual for a lot of reasons. He's been in WWE before. He left on unsavory circumstances. Eventually, he came back to AEW, the rival promotion, had issues there, left, and then came back to WWE with big fanfare. I've always felt like he's a little overrated, but, he's a big fan favorite, and he did well in this match. And this feud between the three of them has been really well done. He had earlier in the year required a favor from Roman Reigns' manager, Paul Heyman, another longtime pro wrestling guy, because he helped Roman Reigns in the Survivor Series match against the new bloodline that kicked out Roman Reigns. So there's a lot of history here. You have to look it up. I can't go into all of it. If you don't understand and you're confused, like, what are all these names you're throwing out? Do some research. You'll find out. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. And if you have the Peacock app, this is not an endorsement. This is not a plug. I don't get paid from Peacock. I'm not endorsing them. It's just that's where you can watch WWE content, and on Netflix. They're on Netflix now. So Netflix and Peacock and USA Network for SmackDown. Okay. But Seth Rollins hates CM Punk. He turned on Roman Reigns in the past, so they've been enemies for a while. So this is a grudge match between the three of them. And Paul Heyman is in CM Punk's corner because he's always been friends with Punk, but he was supposed to manage Roman Reigns, but he owed Punk a favor, so he's in CM Punk's corner. They go through the match, and Paul Heyman double crosses both Punk and Roman Reigns to help Seth Rollins win the match. If you want to know the outcome of that, you can also watch the following Monday Night Raw, which I've watched by now, and man, is it crazy. There's some throwaway stuff on the show, but as far as like the aftermath of the Heyman Rollins everything, it's pretty interesting. But Seth Rollins ends up winning over the other two. It's a triple threat match. He ends up the winner with Paul Heyman's help. So that's night 1 of WrestleMania. All in all, not bad. Night 2 was better. Night 2 was more entertaining, I think. Night 1 had stuff that I thought was going to be more interesting, but I wasn't really invested in the New Day match, or the Tiffany match, or the Jade over Naomi match. The only matches I was interested in really was Jay versus Gunther and the triple threat match at the end. All the matches were okay, but those were the only ones that I was really impressed by. So night 2 on Sunday, I didn't actually watch this until Monday because it was Easter and whatever. But you had Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley for the other women's championship. Because there's 2 women's championships, there's 2 men's championships, and then there's the various tag team championships. And this was a pretty good match for all of them. Sometimes the women's match, they don't seem like they get enough practice. I've seen some very talented... People are going to start thinking that, oh yeah, you're trying to say that the lady wrestlers aren't as good as the men wrestlers. And that's not it at all. There's been some very excellent lady wrestlers throughout the years that are as good or better than many of the male wrestlers. But over the past several months, the women's matches on the whole seem to be sloppier. Like, they're not as put together very well, and I think they're just not getting as much training, and I don't know if maybe they have different trainers between the men and the women, and the women's trainers just aren't as good. Maybe you need to hire better people, but they just seem like they don't work as well. But this match was pretty good. They all put in a great effort. There was a lot of back and forth, and Io Sky, who already was the champion, she ended up defeating the other two, and she pinned, I believe she pinned Bianca. for the win. I don't remember for sure. She pinned one of them and she won. So she's still the champion. So it was a pretty good match. I enjoyed it. The next match was Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest in a street fight, which was basically use a bunch of furniture and weapons and beat the crap out of each other. And it was actually pretty good. I'm not usually into the various weapon matches because I think it's kind of lazy because anybody can just pick up chairs and just beat on each other back and forth. But this was pretty well done. They went outside the ring, they did some fighting outside, but then they got back in and they used various implements, but they did a lot of moves on things, and I think it ended up well. I kind of thought that Damian Priest should have won because he needs a push, but they gave it to Drew McIntyre. And so I'm interested to see how they're going to use both those guys here in the near future. So Drew McIntyre beat Damian Priest via pin. Now the match after that was another super interesting one. It was Dominic Mysterio versus Finn Balor versus Penta, the other luchador, and Braun Breaker, who's a beast. Braun Breaker is an absolute beast. He's the son of Rick Steiner of the legendary Steiner brothers. They're in the Hall of Fame. Scott Steiner is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Scott Steiner, he was just an absolute madhouse of everything. His promos, his everything about him was just insane. And Dominic and Finn Balor are on a team. They're both in the Judgment Day group. And what's interesting is that they had the back and forth. There's been some tension between Dominic and Finn Balor. And Dominic and Finn ended up screwing each other over a couple times towards the end of the match, and it ended up working up in Dominic Mysterio's favor, and he's now the Intercontinental Champion, because that's what this match is for. He's now has a championship belt. So that was interesting. I didn't expect that outcome. And I'm kind of looking forward to how the story goes from there. The next match was Randy Orton with an open challenge, because Randy Orton was supposed to face Kevin Owens for a grudge match at WrestleMania, but Kevin got a legitimate injury somewhere, so he had to bow out. It wasn't a scripted thing. It was he's actually hurt. He had to drop out. He's on medical leave. So Randy Orton, because he was already penciled in for a match, was like, I'm just going to fight somebody. Somebody's going to come out. And he does the open challenge. And out comes the TNA champion, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling champion, from a different promotion. There's a partnership with WWE right now. Joe Hendry. And the people went nuts, because Joe Hendry is super popular. If you've been watching wrestling over the past 5 years, Joe Hendry is just super popular with people. People love this guy. They love his entrance. They love everything about him. So he comes out. Randy Orton wins. But Joe puts on a good show. It's definitely... He has potential to be in WWE in the near future. I bet when his contract is up at TNA, he'll end up at WWE. But it was a fun match. After that, you had Logan Paul versus AJ Styles. I don't like Logan Paul at all. I think he's a terrible person in real life. And so I can't get into him as a wrestling person. He carries over that same attitude from real life into his wrestling persona, and he's just... He's a trash fire of a person, to be honest. He's done some pretty terrible things. But he won over AJ Styles via pin because of some various things that happened outside the ring between people. Long story short, that's it. I don't want to dwell on that too much. Get a quick drink in here. The next match was a women's tag team championship match. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, who are in the same group as Dominic and Finn Balor, They were defending their tag belts against Lyra Valkyria and a mystery opponent, because it was supposed to be Lyra Valkyria, who's the Intercontinental Women's Champion, and Bayley. But Bayley got attacked backstage like the week before. Probably because she had something legitimate where she couldn't be there. Usually when they do that at the last minute, it means there's actually some kind of thing that they're covering up for. Like there's an injury or whatnot. The Kevin Owens thing, they played it pretty close to home. But a lot of times with most wrestlers, they don't want to tell people that there's a legitimate problem. They want to cover it up. Suspension of disbelief, right? So Lyra Valkyria, she's got a mystery partner. It's the return of Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch popularly calls herself the Man. She's been out for a long time. Her contract had come up, and she hadn't renewed it last anybody knew because she wanted to take time off. So she was away from the business for a while. And then this was her return match. And this was pretty good, too. Like, for being somebody who hasn't been in the ring for a while, she did pretty well for herself. She's obviously been training. She's obviously been doing very well. And Becky and Lyra won the tag belts over Liv and Raquel. If you want to see the fallout from that, watch the following Raw. And then after that was the main event for night 2, which was Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. And it was an interesting match to watch because I've seen a lot of John Cena matches. Usually he's pretty quick, he runs around a lot, he's pretty excitable. And this time he was very slow, very methodical, very particular. He was very by the numbers, and he had this smirk on his face the whole time as if he's like, you guys knew I was going to do this move. I'm going to do this move because you expect it, and I'm going to do this because that's been his gimmick since he's turned to bad guy. He's like, I'm only going to do this stuff because you guys want me to do it, but I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me because you guys suck, and that's how he's been. He's been a grouchy old man about things. And it went back and forth a while. There was a lot of good ups and downs, and then Travis Scott came out for whatever reason to cause a distraction. Travis Scott is a terrible human being also, kind of like Logan Paul. Regardless of whatever talent he might have, he's a rap hip-hop musician who's had, various success on the Billboard charts and whatever. But he's had a lot of, if you want to look up some of the problems I have with him, look up some of the issues he's had with some of his concerts, and fatalities at a Travis Scott concert. Okay, that's not a joke. That's not me just making things up. That's some very specific things. So for some reason he's here, he's helping out John Cena, and because of his various distractions, Cena got one over on Cody, and now Cena's the champion. So I'm interested to see where that's going to go. Now, I've seen Monday Night Raw, so I know what happens afterwards, but I'm not going to spoil it for you because you will want to see it if you're a wrestling fan. But that's WrestleMania 41. Let me know what you thought about it. If you've seen it, if you have comments about it, then tell me about it. I can take comments on Spotify and some of the other podcast platforms that this is going to be out on. Tell me what you thought about it. I'm interested. Because I felt like last year's WrestleMania on the whole was better, but there were some good things about this one. And I hope next year's has a bit more preparation to it, because I think this one was kind of thrown together, to be honest. I don't think everything here was planned all the way from last year. I think they kind of did some last-minute things. But that's it. That's the end of the show. We've talked about a lot, and once again, I want to thank everybody for being listeners and for being here and for watching my YouTube videos. We're succeeding. We are chasing that success on up the mountain, straight up into space. And we're not going to stop. All the way to Alpha Centauri, that's where we're going. All the way to the Andromeda Galaxy, all the way to Gliese, whatever that number planet was. If you know, you know. We're keeping on going. And so thank you for everybody who's been along for the ride. I appreciate you. There's more episodes. Next week, we're talking to a member of the writing team for Jack and V, the sci-fi novel. It's a great conversation. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to see you folks then. Have a good night.